Today we're going to continue our lessons about the order of operations. Let's start by filling in all 4 steps. The first step of the order of operations is to look for anything that has parentheses or brackets. Parentheses are rounded off, and brackets have more of a boxed look to it. We'll get more into those as time goes on. The second thing you look for in order of operations is exponents. As you recall, exponents are when you have a number, for example, 2, and then it's to a power, so 2 to the 3rd power. You look for exponents second. The third thing you look for is multiplication or division. And then the last thing you're going to look for is addition or subtraction. Now, yesterday or the day before, we talked about the associative property and the commutative property. And what we learned is with the associative property, you can multiply or add in any order, but with division and subtraction, you need to go from left to right. Today we're going to focus truly just on these 2 steps. That's what we're going to be looking at today. And we're going to talk about what happens when these operations get mixed up and how you have to solve those. So this is today. And the question is, what do we do when the operations are mixed up? So let's start by just focusing on the multiplication and division part of it. Let's say, for example, the problems look like these 2 examples. When you're solving problems with multiplication and division, just because multiplication is said first doesn't mean you always do multiplication first. When they're mixed up, you must solve these problems from left to right. So you must solve from left to right. So we'll solve this first one together, and then we'll take a second for you to solve the second one on your own. So we're looking at this problem, and I'm going to go through all of the order of operation steps, even though we're not going to talk about the first 2 today. We check if there's any parentheses. There's no parentheses. We check if there's any exponents. There's no exponents. So now we're at multiplication and division. And we look to see if there's any multiplication and the division in the problem. And you notice there's both of them. So what we have to do is you have to make sure that you start from the left side of the problem and you work your way to the right and solve all of the multiplication problems in that order. Okay, so let's take a look. So we're starting with the 20, and we see that we have 20 divided by 5. Now I want you to see how we write these because you have to show your work. I'm going to start with 20 divided by 5. And I know that 20 divided by 5 is 4. That's the first thing I see when I start from the left and move towards the right. So I have to start with that one. Now I'm going to require that you rewrite the problem every time we do it. So you did 20 divided by 5, you got 4, and I'm going to rewrite the rest of the problem so it shows underneath. So now I'm left with 4 times 2. There's only one operation left, so that's the one I need to solve. 4 times 2 is 8. You will notice that every time we solve a problem, you're going to end up with a V where the answer is going to show at the end of the problem. And I want to make sure that you do that. So please show your work. So I want you to now solve the next example all on your own. And once you've put your answer in, then you can come back and check. If, again, you put your answer in incorrectly, make sure you change your answer in your notes so your notes are right. Okay, welcome back. You looked at this problem, 50 times 2 divided by 10. Since it's all multiplication and division, you notice there's no parentheses, no exponents, but it's all multiplication and division. So you are going to go from left to right to solve them. So starting at the left, you have 50 times 2. 50 times 2 is 100. You rewrite the rest of the problem so that we have all of it. 100 divided by 10 is 10. So we have our V, and we're left with 10 as our final answer. Very good. If you had that wrong, please make sure you change your answer so it is correct. All right, let's move on. What if they're all addition and subtraction? Same thing happens when it's all addition and subtraction. You must solve these problems from left to right. So we're going to put that in this arrow, just like the other ones. Must solve from left to right. And again, this is only if the problems are mixed up, if it's addition and subtraction. Remember, if it's all addition, you can go in any order. If it's all subtraction, you have to go from left to right. So we look at this first example, 20 minus 5 plus 2, and we're looking at it and we're thinking, okay, are there any parentheses? The answer is no. Are there any exponents? The answer is no. Is there any multiplication or division? The answer is no. So we're at addition and subtraction. Since it's a mixture of addition and subtraction, we have to go from left to right. So let's start with 20 minus 5. 20 minus 5 is 15. You rewrite the rest of the problem, 15 plus 2. 15 plus 2 is 17. I have my V. My final answer is 17. So if we take a second and we think about it, let's say, for example, you started the other way. Let's say, for example, you started with 5 plus 2. 5 plus 2, and you don't need to write this down. 5 plus 2 would have given you 7. If you rewrite the rest of the problem, 20 minus 7, you would get 13. And you see that does not match the answer you got before. So you have to make sure if it's a mixture of addition and subtraction, you go from left to right. All right, now take a second, solve the next one on your own, and then we will come back and check your answer. Okay, we are looking at 50 plus 2 minus 10. We check for distributing. I'm sorry, not distributing. We check for any parentheses, and there's no parentheses. Then we check for exponents, and there's no exponents. We look for multiplication and division, and there's none in that as well. So we're at the fourth step with addition and subtraction, and you notice that it's a mixture, so you have to go from left to right. So I started with 50 plus 2, which is 52. I rewrite the rest of the problem, minus 10. And then I do 52 minus 10 because it's the only part that's left, and I'm left with 42. So the answer you should have gotten was 42. Okay, so that's when it's all one step, like all multiplication or division and all addition and subtraction. What happens when you're solving problems with a mixture of those two operations? So again, we look for parentheses first, we look for exponents, and then what we have to realize is when you have a mixture of the operations, you first have to look for multiplication and division and solve all of the multiplication and division from left to right first, and then second look for addition and subtraction and solve all of the addition and subtraction from left to right after that. If you follow the process like we've talked about, if you write the step and then rewrite the entire problem, which I'm requiring that you do, then you'll end up with the V at the end and one answer. So let's look at this example. When solving problems with a mixture of operations, you notice that there's no parentheses, you notice that there's no exponents. Then we look for multiplication and division, and you see that you have that. So again, you start at the left side of the problem, and you look for multiplication and division. We get to this point, and you see there is a multiplication problem here. So you have to do the multiplication problem first. So I'm going to start with 3 times 6. I know that 3 times 6 is 18. Okay, so we need to rewrite the problem. 3 times 6 was 18. We still have 5. I think I'm going to change the color I'm writing this in. So this was 18. Rewrite it. You still have 5 plus. You have a divided by 9 over here and a minus 4. So just because we had a multiplication and division doesn't mean we need to stop looking for it. So again, we have to continue along the problem to see if there's any multiplication or division, and we run into it right here. So we have to do that before anything else. So 18 divided by 9 is 2. And then we have to rewrite the rest of the problem. 5 plus 2 minus 4. And you'll notice what's left is all addition and subtraction. So we're still going to solve the addition and subtraction from left to right. So we're going to start here, and we get the 5 plus 2 first. 5 plus 2 is 7. And then you rewrite the rest of the problem, 7 minus 4. And then 7 minus 4 is 3. So we have RV, and it ends up with the expression equaling 3 at the bottom. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to have you do the next 3 one by one. You'll fill in your answers, so we're going to start with A, and then check if your answers are right as you finish. Okay, so let's start with A. Do the problem on your own, and then fill in your answer. Okay, so we look at A, 75 plus 5 times 12. Check for parentheses, no parentheses. Exponents, no exponents. Multiplication and division, we check from left to right. And I see that I do have a multiplication that I need to do first. So I start with 5 times 12. You should have gotten 60 for that. Rewrite the problem. You have 75 plus 60. And you're left with just this addition problem left. So you should have had 75 plus 60 is 135. You have your V, and you have 135 as your answer. Please change your answer if yours is wrong. All right, let's try out B. Do B on your own, fill in your answer, and then come back and check if it's right. All right, let's check this out. So we checked for parentheses, no parentheses, exponents, no exponents. We look for multiplication and division. When I look at this one, there is multiplication and division, but you have to go left to right. So the first one you see is 70 divided by 10. 70 divided by 10 is 7. I'm going to rewrite the rest of the problem. 7 minus 3 times 2. I still have to look for multiplication and division in my problem. So I have a multiplication. So I have to do multiplication first. 3 times 2 is 6. I should have had 7 minus 6 then, because I just solved that part. Rewrite the whole problem. And I'm left with 7 minus 6, which is 1. So you're going to find a lot of the time that that last step, the addition and subtraction, you end up with one operation left anyway. So that's what you have to do. All right. So now please try C on your own. And then when you're done, you can put your answer in. And we'll move on and check your answer. All right, let's check out C. So when we look at C, there's no parentheses. There's no exponents. We look for multiplication and division, and I see that I have 5 times 3 I need to solve. So 5 times 3 is 15. I'm going to write the rest of the problem, and then look at what I have. I again look for any multiplication and division. I don't have any more, so now I'm going to do addition and subtraction. So I'm going to look at addition and subtraction, and because there's a mixture of operations, I have to go left to right. So I start with 22 minus 15. 22 minus 15 is 7. I write the rest of the problem, plus 9. And I'm left with just 7 plus 9, which is 16. I have my upside down, I have my V, and I know that the answer is 16. All right, so right now you're going to be working on your homework. Your homework is a worksheet, and it will be written on the board for you to complete. I want you to take a second and rate your understanding of these 2 steps of order of operations and quietly work on your homework. Thank you.